phones, Babylons can't crack the code.
Being ranked as some of the top high school athletes all time coming out of high school comes with a lot of pressure and a lot of expectations. You're expected to be a college legend and a baller in the NFL. In today's video, y'all, I want to talk about what happened to the top 5 all-time recruits according to 24/7 Sports. Now, I'm using 24/7 Sports for this video, and their rankings go all the way back to 2000 to present day. Now let's get into the video. Coming in at number 5 from the 2003 recruiting class was linebacker Ernie Sims. Now, Ernie Sims would end up committing to Florida State over schools such as Auburn, Florida, Georgia, and Miami. In Ernie Sims' true freshman season at Florida State, he had a pretty good season where he had 42 total tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 0 sacks, and 1 forced fumble. It wasn't anything crazy, but he still had a pretty good season to say the least. Ernie Sims would take his game to the next level as a sophomore in the 2004 college football season, where he had 86 total tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. Also, in this season, he would be a first-team All-American according to ESPN.com, and he would make the Atlantic Coast Conference second team. In his junior season in 2005, he would not be as dominant as he was in his sophomore year, but he was still pretty dominant, having 72 total tackles, 10 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks, and 2 interceptions. For this season, he would be an ACC All-Conference honorable mention, and he would end up ending his career shortly after his junior season, declaring his name for the 2006 NFL Draft, ending his career in which he had 200 total tackles, 21 tackles for loss, 7 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, and 2 interceptions. He would end up getting selected in the first round with the 9th overall pick by the Detroit Lions. Ernie Sims would spend the first 4 years of his NFL career with the Detroit Lions, and honestly, that was the best time of his career as he put up the best numbers that he had his entire career, and he was playing his best football, and he was healthiest at that point of his career. In those 4 seasons, he had a total of 421 total tackles, 2.5 sacks, and 18 tackles for loss. In his first 3 seasons in Detroit, he would actually eclipse over 110 tackles in each season, and his tackling high was actually at 134 in his second year in the league in 2007. But in his 4th year, his final year in Detroit, he would suffer some injury issues and would only appear in 11 games. Sims would then be dealt off to the Philadelphia Eagles in a trade where he'd play in Philadelphia for 1 season, where he played in 15 games where he had 55 total tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 1 fumble recovery, and 1 forced fumble and 2 sacks. He would then spend 1 season in Indianapolis with the Colts, where he was primarily coming off the bench, only starting in 4 of the 13 games he played in that season, and he had 61 total tackles, 1 tackle for loss, and 1 pass deflection. Ernie Sims would spend 2 more seasons in the NFL, both with the Dallas Cowboys, where in those 2 seasons, he had a total of 86 tackles, 1 sack, and 1 pass deflection. The 4th player on the all-time list comes out of the 2002 recruiting class and was a quarterback, and that was Vince Young. Vince Young would choose the Texas Longhorns over schools such as Florida State, LSU, and Arkansas. In Vince Young's true freshman season, he would end up redshirting, and then in the 2003 college football season as a redshirt freshman, he would take over the starting job for the Longhorns halfway through the season. In that season, he finished completing 59% of his passes, threw for 1,155 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions, but on the ground, he rushed for 998 rushing yards, averaging 7.4 yards per carry and 11 touchdowns. In the 2004 college football season at Texas, Vince Young as a redshirt sophomore would be the starter the entire season. In this season, he would complete 59% of his passes, throw for 1,849 yards, while throwing 12 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. On the ground, he would end up rushing for 1,079 yards, averaging 6 yards and a half per carry and 14 touchdowns. This season, Texas had a lot of success, going 11-1 to finish the year, including a Rose Bowl victory over Michigan. In the 2005 college football season as a redshirt junior, Vince Young would have his best season yet at Texas, where he completed 65% of his passes, threw for 3,036 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. On the ground this season, he rushed for 1,050 yards and 12 touchdowns, and helped lead the Texas Longhorns to a BCS national championship title. After being one of the top quarterbacks in the 2005 college football season, he would declare his name for the 2006 NFL Draft, where he was taken 3rd overall in the first round by the Tennessee Titans. Vince Young in his rookie year would actually be the AP Offensive Rookie of the Year, and in that season he threw for 12 touchdowns and 13 interceptions while throwing for 2,199 yards and completing 52% of his passes. On the ground that season, he rushed for 552 yards and 7 touchdowns. Now, he showed a lot of flashes in that season, and a lot of people were hyped up for Vince Young in the future, and he even made a Pro Bowl in his rookie season. Now, after his rookie season, he would have a pretty decent 2007 season, but after that and injury issues, he would essentially fall off and not really be trusted at all by the Tennessee Titans, and would put up some mediocre numbers throughout the years. And he would eventually play his final season in Philadelphia, where he was a backup quarterback posing a 1-2 starting quarterback record. Now, for his 6-year NFL career that he had, he posed a 31-19 starting record, where he completed 58% of his passes, threw for 8,964 yards, 46 touchdowns, and 51 interceptions. And on the ground, he would end up rushing for in his career 1,459 yards and 12 touchdowns. He would end up making 2 Pro Bowls during his career. Coming in at the number 3 spot of all time is Rashan Gary, the defensive lineman from the 2016 recruiting class. Now, Rashan Gary would end up committing to Michigan over schools like Clemson, Auburn, Ole Miss, USC, and Alabama, just to name a few. Rashan Gary would spend 3 seasons at Michigan, where he had a breakout sophomore season where he had 58 total tackles, 11.5 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks, and 1 forced fumble. After 3 years at Michigan, he would declare his name for the 2019 NFL Draft, ending his career in which he had 119 total tackles, 23 tackles for loss, 9.5 sacks, and 1 forced fumble. He would end up getting selected in the first round of the 2019 NFL Draft by the Green Bay Packers. In Rashan Gary's rookie season in the 2019 NFL season with the Green Bay Packers, he would end up playing in all 16 games, but primarily coming off the bench. In this season, he had 2 sacks, 21 total tackles, and 3 tackles for loss, with 1 fumble recovery. But in the 2020 NFL season, he would make a bigger impact for the Packers, as in 15 games played, he would start in 4 of them, where he had 1 fumble recovery, 5 sacks, 35 total tackles, and 5 tackles for loss. Coming in at number 2 from the 2013 recruiting class is Robert Nkemdiche, the defensive lineman. He would end up choosing Ole Miss over schools such as Florida, LSU, Clemson, and Alabama. Robert Nkemdiche would spend 3 seasons at Ole Miss, where honestly, he never really lived up to the hype that a lot of people thought he was going to live up to. In 3 seasons there, he would end up having 81 total tackles, 16 tackles for loss, and 6 sacks. Now, he would declare his name early for the 2016 NFL Draft, forgoing his final year of eligibility at Ole Miss, where in that draft he would end up being selected with the 29th overall pick in the first round by the Arizona Cardinals. Robert Nkemdiche would spend 3 full seasons with the Arizona Cardinals, where he was very injury-riddled, and he was primarily coming off the bench. In those 3 seasons, he would play in 27 games and start in 6 of them. He would end up having 44 total tackles, 4.5 sacks, and 1 fumble recovery during his entire career with the Arizona Cardinals before being released in the 2019 NFL offseason. After Arizona, he would end up signing a 1-year deal in the 2019 NFL season with the Miami Dolphins, but he would only play in 2 games as he was suffering through injury issues most of the season and was actually released before the season even ended. He would end up getting suspended shortly after he was released by the NFL for 2 weeks, and he has not played in the NFL since the 2019 NFL season. The number 1 all-time player according to 24/7 Sports is Jadeveon Clowney from the 2011 recruiting class, and he would end up choosing South Carolina over schools like Alabama, Clemson, Auburn, and Florida, just to name a few. Jadeveon Clowney would spend 3 seasons at South Carolina, where he had 129 total tackles, 47 tackles for loss, 24 sacks, 7 pass deflections, 1 fumble recovery, and 9 forced fumbles in only 3 seasons. Now, he would have a big season in 2012 as a sophomore, where he had 54 total tackles, 23.5 tackles for loss, and 13 sacks, and 3 forced fumbles. He would also be a 2012 All-American and a 2012 Ted Hendricks Award winner. He would end up forgoing his final year of eligibility at South Carolina and declare his name for the 2014 NFL Draft, where he was taken number 1 overall by the Houston Texans. Jadeveon Clowney would spend a total of 5 seasons at Houston to start off his NFL career. In his first 2 years in Houston, he did suffer some injury issues in the beginning that did delay him being a star immediately in the NFL. but in his final 3 years at Houston, he would make 3 straight Pro Bowl appearances. In his 5-year career at Houston, he would end up having a total of 205 tackles, 29 sacks. He would also have 6 fumble recoveries, 4 forced fumbles, and 64 tackles for loss. Jadeveon Clowney would then spend 1 season in Seattle in the 2019 NFL season, where he started in 11 of the 13 games he played in, and he had 4 forced fumbles and 2 fumble recoveries, while having 3 sacks and 31 total tackles, 7 of them being for loss. After his 1-year campaign with the Seahawks, he would then take his talents to Tennessee in the 2020 NFL season, where he only played in 8 games for the season, where he had 1 forced fumble, 19 total tackles, and 4 tackles for loss. Well guys, now that I'm at the end of the video, remember to smash that like button, turn on them post notifications, and subscribe for more videos. Kelley out.